Good afternoon. I am Mickey Ibarra, founder and chairman of the Latino Leaders Network, host of the Latino Leaders Luncheon Series. We have been convening our series since 2004. We are delighted to convene the 64th. We're delighted to convene the 64th event of the series for the first time in San Diego. And during Hispanic Heritage Month. As most of you know, we tried last year twice, but the COVID-19 pandemic prevented us from convening as planned. But I'll tell you once again, so many of you in this room have experienced this. We have proved once again that persistence plus patience equals success, and here we are. I also want to thank you for joining us to continue bringing leaders together to establish relationships, build unity, and share our stories. Now, in addition to all of you in the room today, the program is being streamed on Facebook Live. Welcome also to everyone across the country online. Please help us promote the event on social media using the information on the big screens and also printed on your program. Now, please help me welcome Dr. Adela de la Torre, President of San Diego State University, today's recipient of our Eagle Leadership Award. Doctor. And Lydia Martinez, the first recipient of our Champion Award. Lydia. Rabbi Lori Koski continues to utilize her leadership position to establish a more just world for all by promoting civil rights and utilizing her urban ministry dedicated to diminishing poverty in San Diego. Rabbi Koski will offer the invocation. Rabbi.
Thank you. The only joy about postponing this lunch is that I got to be in contact with Mickey on 3 separate occasions for a bit, and what a joy it has been. Thank you, Mickey. I'm so excited to be here with you today because we're actually here and we're together, and I have many, many friends that I'm sitting with today. Let's take a breath, really a breath. Big one of gratitude. Gratitude for this moment that we are able to come together in person with one another after this long time of staying apart. In my Jewish tradition, we are taught to take these moments, not to take these moments for granted. We bless them, expressing our recognition of the miraculous nature of how we can come together again. We want to be present, really present, and so we share a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Bendito seas, oh Señor, nuestros Dios, el Rey del universo, que nos conservaste en vida, nos sostenaste y nos permitaste a llegar a esta ocasión. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for bringing us together on this very occasion. And we would be remiss if we don't take a moment in our togetherness to hold dear to us those who have been stricken by COVID, those who suffer with the after effects of having been ill and survived, thank God, and those who we cherish that did not survive. We hold them in our hearts and in our memories, and we take this moment of silence, remembering them now. And as we come back together to honor individuals who are bigger than life in our country and in our community, I ask God's blessing in the very ancient words of the Hebrew Bible. And I'm going to lift my hand as it was instructed by the high priest. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'huneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Bendícete el Señor conservándote. May God bless you and keep you. Y su semblante te ilumine y agresiándote. May God's face shine upon you and be very gracious to you. El semblante del Señor se dirija hacia ti, concediéndote paz. May God's countenance shine on you and give to you happiness and health and length of days. May God give our world and your beloveds happiness of health and length of days. And may God give to all of us, to our world, the ultimate blessing of paz, salam, shalom, peace. And let us all say, Amen.
Nice job. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Very nice. Thank you. Rabbi, you came to us highly recommended. And thank you so much for the invocation. Before acknowledging elected officials and special guests, we want to present two community leaders who will deliver greetings. First, Congressman Juan Vargas, like my brother and I, the son of a bracero. Juan Vargas, born in National City, and I know the mayor of National City was here earlier. Okay, and she's still there. Thank you. Congressman Vargas, one of 10 children of his immigrant parents from Mexico. Congressman Vargas and his wife, Adrian, who's here with him, attended a small dinner hosted by the Latino Leaders Network in Washington for San Diego business leaders clear back in September of 2019, where we talked about the possibility of bringing this event to San Diego. Congressman, we are grateful for your leadership, empathy for those less fortunate, and your devotion to public service at every level of government. Please welcome the Honorable Juan Vargas for greetings. Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone, and it really is an honor to be here at this long-awaited 64th Latino Leaders Luncheon Series. And thank you again, the Honorable Mickey Ibarra, for the invitation to be here today. It really is an honor for me, and I appreciate it very much. And to Rabbi Laurie Koski, my good friend, thank you for that beautiful invocation. I have to tell you, your Hebrew is so beautiful that I even understood some of it. That really was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I am very grateful that we're all able to be here in person today. And I mean in person, but specifically, I'm excited to be in the room today to celebrate the Latinas that will be honored during today's program. As was said earlier, this week we kicked off Hispanic Heritage Month, which is a time to pay tribute to the generations of Hispanic Americans who have positively influenced and enriched our nation. Some great leaders, of course, come to mind. There's always Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Sonia Sotomayor, and astronaut Ellen Ochoa. And it's very meaningful that we gather here today to hear from today's honorees. President Adela de la Torre. Adela, your leadership has demonstrated over the years that our region is grateful to have you serving as the first woman and the first Latina president of San Diego State University. We always wanted someone who was a Latina or Latino, and we didn't really realize how great it was going to be until we got one. Now we're so proud and so happy. And also Lydia Martinez, who retired after 30 years of service at Southwest Airlines. The community relations was much more than a job for you. You poured your heart and soul into everything you did, and our community greatly benefited from your dedication. I always thought of you as giving wings to our children. You know, whenever we needed to send someone somewhere and we were stuck, Lidia always said yes. She didn't know how to say no to children, to young people. She didn't know how. And I always thought of that. You put wings on them, and you were able to send them to all these different places to enrich them and enrich our community. So proud that today that you're going to receive this award. Really am. Now, today is also potentially a very interesting day, because today we may hear, and it may be a huge day for the immigrant community, of course, Latino community and other communities. A lot of people don't know, but within that big bill that you hear about, the $3.5 trillion, the Build Back Better, we actually have immigration in there. We have 4 groups: our dreamers, farm workers, temporary protected status, and essential workers. They're in the bill. Many of us didn't write a letter and threaten, saying we wouldn't vote for the bill. Instead, we went to Nancy and told her we wouldn't vote for the bill unless we had immigration in there. We have immigration in there. We have the votes. We have the votes to pass it out of the Congress. We have the votes in the Senate. But today we'll find out from this. They have a crazy system on the Senate side, whether the Senate parliamentarian will allow it in the reconciliation bill. If she says yes, and we'll probably hear today, 8 million immigrants, 8 million, will be on the path to citizenship. 8 million. But Lori, Rabbi, I should have told you that before I spoke, because you could have put them into the prayer. But if all of you pray today for Elizabeth McDonough, that's her name. That's the parliamentarian. I think she'll decide today. We gave her the information a week ago. If she says yes, if we get this bill through, literally, it'll be not all the 12 million that we want, but 8 million will be able to go through and become citizens because of that. So whatever your faith tradition is, if you pray, if you say good words, if it's karma, whatever it is, please think about them and Elizabeth McDonough today. God bless you again, and thank you for allowing me to be here. It's an honor.
Thank you, Congressman. We are delighted also to be joined by Supervisor Nora Vargas, Vice Chair of the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. Supervisor Vargas was sworn in on January 4th, 2021, as the first Latina, first immigrant, and first woman of color in the history of San Diego County Board. Hey, good. See, they love you.
Oh, thank you.
I should have brought one more trophy. However, Nora's commitment to civic engagement, community organizing, and public service spans a career of over 25 years. Please welcome Supervisor Nora Vargas of San Diego for greetings.
this is super exciting because I don't know how many of you know that I didn't get to have a celebration when I won because this little thing called COVID. But we've been fighting it and we've been doing really, really well. So our communities now are, I just have to say this so that, because I want to make sure everybody knows that when people tell you that things are not possible, 85.7% of the community in South County, which is our district, my district, is fully vaccinated. And I see a lot of the community partners here, but it's really important for me to share that with you because it's how we get to be here today together. And I miss all of you, right? I miss hugging you. I miss seeing you. And so it really is, I am very grateful to be here with you. And Congressman Vargas, my congressman, I want you to know that as soon as I get home, voy a prender mi vela de San Judas Tadeo because I believe, y ahorita que llegue la prendo. So I will be praying when I get home because all of those folks in our community really need this to happen. Así que buenas tardes. Me da muchísimo gusto estar con todos ustedes. Es un placer, más que nada, porque lo estamos haciendo en persona y porque tenemos el gran orgullo y oportunidad de reconocer a dos mujeres que son ángeles de la guardia para tanta gente. And, you know, this week, it really is an honor for me to be here and to welcome you to the 64th Latino Leaders Luncheon Series. And it's so cool that it's the first one. And I will say that I know a little bit about being the first at a couple of things. Just this week, we were able to, for the first time, illuminate the County of San Diego in its history to honor Hispanic Heritage Month. And it was so exciting. In the case that anybody is wondering, the history of the County of San Diego is 171 years. So it's kind of special. But this is very fitting because this year's Hispanic Heritage Month theme is Esperanza, a celebration of Hispanic heritage and hope. This theme really invites all of us to celebrate our heritage and reflect on what our future can be if we hold on to resilience and to hope. And I see a lot of, I know I'm going to just say this, I have to give a shout out to all my Hope sisters that are here today. Many of you have been my inspiration and others, and that's what we do, right? We dream and we work and we serve. As the first Latina on the Board of Supervisors and the Vice Chair of the County Board, representing District 1, I stand on the shoulders of so many, especially so many that are here. Today, we're going to pay tribute to two trailblazers, two Latina trailblazers that have broken glass ceilings while never forgetting to bring others along. As it really is a pleasure for me to honor that we're going to be honoring today the first woman and first Latina to serve permanently appointed to the San Diego State University, Dr. Adela de la Torre. And you know, when you talk about leadership, this is the kind of leadership that our communities needed, and it was the right time. And the first thing she did was a listening tour, and she listened to all of us to try to make sure that she was doing everything she could to better our students. And I have a special place in my heart for San Diego State, having been a student and having met my bestie there, and I'll tell you about that later. But so it's very fitting that you're here, that we're honoring you today. And then my Hada Madrina, Lydia Martinez, it's such a wonderful, I think, ceremony to have today in your honor, because I think there's no one, and I think everybody here in one way or another has been touched by you and your family, your beautiful family that shares you with us. We are grateful for you because you have impacted our communities more than anyone. And I'll never forget that you always said, you know, play it forward. It's who you are and what you do, and you live by example. So I'm so excited to cheer you on in a little bit. I am beyond grateful for everything that you do. And then this afternoon, you're also going to get a special treat to hear from the first Latino, LGBTQ, only Latino constitutional officer in the state of California, also known as my bestie, Commissioner Ricardo Lara. That's really his claim to fame, by the way. Just kidding. All of our honorees and speakers today prove that contributions by Latinos are critical in our efforts to advance our communities and that we can accomplish so much more together. Thank you again for the opportunity to welcome you all to this particular 64th Latino Leaders Luncheon. Bienvenidos and congratulations. And I have to say, Mickey Ibarra, you have, you know, I stand on your shoulders and so many of us do. So muchísimas gracias for everything that you do. Gracias.
Love Nora. The mission of the Latino Leaders Network is bringing leaders together. And with nearly 200 guests registered to attend this event, we appreciate your support. And while every guest, I mean this, every guest is worthy of recognition, I want to acknowledge several leaders with us today. Let's build each other up. First, Reuben Alvarez of our Board of Directors of the Latino Leaders Network of Phoenix, Arizona. Reuben, please stand up here. We've also been joined by David Ibarra, yes, my brother, of Salt Lake City. David? And also our newest board member, Lydia Martinez of San Diego. And she thought she was getting away with it when she retired. We do have some elected officials we want to acknowledge, and first and foremost, we're so pleased to be joined all the way from Rhode Island, the Secretary of State of Rhode Island, Nelly Gorvey. Nelly? A proud Puerto Rican who is also a candidate for governor of Rhode Island. We'll hear from Commissioner Ricardo, Lara, a dear friend, certainly Commissioner of the California State Insurance Commission, but also the President of the National Association of Latino Elected and Appointed Officials. Ricardo, thank you for joining us. Is Vice Chairman Antonio Vasquez of the State Board of Equalization here? He was on the registration list, but I'm not sure that he is. Thank you. Thank you. We also have Council Member Joe LaCava of San Diego. Joe? Council Member Vivian Moreno of San Diego is also here. And Council Member Raul Campillo of San Diego. Was Raul able to make it? I know he wanted to be here with us. And there are a number of other local elected officials with us that we want to acknowledge. So take a look at the big screens there, and we'll move on to special guests. And first and foremost, I'm so proud that Paola Avila, the Chief of Staff to the Mayor of San Diego, is with us. Paola? I mentioned the dinner clear back in September of 2019 in Washington, D.C. that we hosted, that Juan and Adrian were with us at. Well, Paola was right there at the table too. What about bringing this event to San Diego? And she has been a big champion of the Latino Leaders Network, and thank you, Paola. We also have been joined by Judge Rachel Cano. Is Judge? Yes, here we go, right here. The Superior Court of California. Also delighted to welcome Ambassador Carlos Gonzalez Gutierrez, the Mexico Consul General of San Diego. We also have been joined by Ambassador Gary Vasquez of Orange County, who was presented our Eagle Leadership Award in 2016 in Cleveland, the former director of the United States Peace Corps, Gary Vasquez. And finally, I want to recognize the Vice Chair of the California State Athletic Commission, Peter Villegas. Peter? We have a host of other community leaders. Again, everyone in this room is worthy of being recognized for sure, but we have some names on the big screens of others that had indicated they'd be joining us today. And now, a word about our sponsors. The Latino Leaders Luncheon Series is made possible by the generous support of good corporate partners. And we have an outstanding group of sponsors to thank today. They made this commitment to be with us when this event was first scheduled on April 2nd, 2020. And we did not lose a single sponsor because of our need to postpone today. So thanks to all of them. Led by our premier sponsor, San Diego Gas and Electric, a Sempra energy utility. So thanks to Sempra and to SDGE. Also to Southwest Airlines, we have Kelly Knox with us, and we want to thank her and Southwest for their support. And delighted, Bank of America has been with us everywhere. And Julian Parra of Bank of America is with us. Thank you, Julian. We also have a book sponsor. If you haven't gotten in your bag yet, you will. And you're going to find in there a book, the Latino Leaders Speak book. And that book has been made possible to provide to each of you today, courtesy of MAC. And we have Arnulfo Manriquez, who's with us from MAC. Again, our book sponsor. Thank you. And in addition to all of that, we have some VIP table sponsors we want to thank. HDR, terrific group right here. David Cobb was not able to join us today, but we're delighted to have them. Also Verizon, we have Jesus Roman. Rudy, I know, is also here with them as well. So thanks to Verizon. We also have Port of San Diego, Commissioners Rafael Castellanos and Sandy Naranjo. Waste Management, in the house, Alex Osiguerra. Thank you, Alex. We also have Qualcomm and also Geico that were supportive of this event. And finally, David Ibarra Enterprises. David, thank you for your support. I also wanted to mention that we have a second book made available in each guest bag. David's new book, Stop Drifting. Take a look. It's in your bag. Thank you, David, for the gift. And finally, I also want to recognize Giving Back Magazine of San Diego for serving as our media partner today, and the feature article in their August edition also included in your guest bag. Please join me in thanking our sponsors and our partners. Some of you may still be wondering, what's the Latino Leaders Network? Never heard of that outfit. Well, give us 2 minutes of your attention, and we're going to tell you more on the big screens, okay? The Latino Leaders Network. About every 90 days, all the leaders in this room and across the country, we need to come together. Our personal stories unite us. They remind us of our responsibility to be good to each other.
We grew up with a mother who instilled in us this sense that we could achieve, that we should dream big, and that people of all different backgrounds had something to contribute to the forward progress of our nation.
Telling our stories is an important community and public service. And now these stories are compiled in one book, Latino Leaders Speak. Now is the time to make sure we get this book into everyone's hands who can share it with a young person, make sure that it is accessible in every network that we have so that generations will have this for years to come.
More and more of America's school children are Latino, 25% nationwide and growing fast. There is a need for Latino role models, inspiring heroes, and outstanding leaders in the classroom. The Latino Leaders Network and the California Global Education Project have partnered to make a unique curriculum guide. It will engage students to learn about the powerful stories of Latino leaders in contemporary society.
These stories inspire us to be better members of our community, of our nation, and the world.
Our goal is to inspire the next generation of leaders from high school to early college.
Help us get the word out to educators. Let them know of this valuable new resource. Urge them to get it into our classrooms, and it's all free of charge.
Those who are Latino, those of you who might be Latino curious, and everybody else. These convenings have fulfilled a role in our lives.
You know, others may try to tear us down. What we need to be dedicated to is building each other up. Don't you agree?
Every guest has been provided a complimentary copy of Latino Leaders Speak, as I mentioned. Now in the second printing, this book is available at Arte Publico Press of the University of Houston. A matching curriculum guide is also in your book. It is targeted to high school students and early college. President Adela de la Torre has already committed that she's going to make sure our book is in the San Diego State University Library. And that her education team take a look at our curriculum guide. Again, free of charge on our website. Each and every one of you have a connection, know someone in the library community, in the book community, in the teaching community. Make them aware of this valuable new resource. And what better time during Hispanic Heritage Month. Lydia, would you please come up and join me? We're going to do the first award before we break for lunch. Today is my high honor to present the inaugural Latino Leaders Network Champion Award to recognize and honor a retired employee of an outstanding sponsor who was substantially responsible for our partnership. From 2007 to 2020, 13 years. Lydia Martinez, Manager of Community Outreach for Southwest Airlines, a 30-year career until her retirement last year, served as our corporate link, as I am sure she did for many others in this room. Lydia, your leadership contributions continue as a member of the Latino Leaders Network Board of Directors, SDSU President's Latino Advisory Council, and so much more. Southwest Airlines is the official airline of the Latino Leaders Network. In large measure because of Lydia Martinez. Lydia, on behalf of our board of directors, I present this inaugural Champion Award to you, an immigrant from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, a leader, mentor, partner, and friend. You can take a picture. It's all yours.
You all are too beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm going to try to do this without my reading glasses because I'm too vain. I've seen pictures of me with my reading glasses. They don't look as good as I look without them. So please bear with me. Thank you, Mickey. Thank you so much for your thoughtfulness and your kindness. Will you please join me in giving Mickey, his team, and all the volunteers a round of applause for bringing us together in this beautiful way. Thank you, Mickey. For me, there's no better way to launch or to spend Hispanic Heritage Month and celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month. But it's better to be with leaders who I admire and I respect. And Dr. Adela de la Torre, felicidades on receiving the prestigious Eagle Leadership Award. Our world needs leaders like you, and we are so happy that you chose San Diego to come and lead us, and I'm so proud to be your friend. Un aplauso para la doctora de la Torre, por favor. As I reflected on receiving this champion award, I considered the definition of a champion, which uses words like advocate, protector, defender, supporter. In short, it's a person who fights for a cause on behalf of someone else. And that's me. Throughout my career, I have believed in a special mantra. We make a living by what we get, and we make a life by what we give. My heart is always full when I reflect on the many years I had the opportunity to give to so many good causes in my role at Southwest Airlines. These were causes that not necessarily fit the Southwest Airlines pillars of giving, but I knew that were important to our community. Some of these memorable efforts include flying the Chula Vista Little League World Series champions to DC to meet with the President of the United States of America. You should have seen their excitement. We did get stuck in DC. There was a huge storm, but that was part of the fun. I was able to support missions that help Latino workers close the pay gap while honing their leadership and organizing skills. Missions that fight to protect our civil rights, and missions that educate us and empower Latinos, a huge and growing voting bloc. When we all come out to the polls and flex our power, there's nothing to stop us from having effective, inclusive, and representative governance. And of course, this includes supporting missions that facilitate full Latino participation in the American political process, from citizenship to public service. More recently, people tend to ask me how I am enjoying retirement, and I have to admit, I am failing at retirement. There's too much to do to stay home and just get old. So I continue to be a champion for some amazing local organizations, to include Mana de San Diego and Cesar Chavez Service Clubs and MAC. Wonderful organizations doing great things for our community. I also continue supporting our local academic institutions, because we all know that quality education lays the foundation for everything that is good in our world. I am proud to actively support San Diego State University and UC San Diego. They keep me quite busy. So I thank Mickey and my Latino Leaders Network colleagues on the board of directors for this very special recognition and for celebrating our community in such an intentional way. Not too many organizations do this, so thank you very much. I want to also thank my Southwest family, Leah, Annabelle, Kelly. Thank you so much for being in my life. I love you. I treasure our friendship, and you will always have a fierce champion in me. I will always, I also want to thank my family, Ted, Teddy, Melina. I love you with all my heart. You're my everything. I want to acknowledge all of you who came to this celebration. I know it's a little still, we get nervous about being in person, but thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. And in closing, let us all continue to make a life by what we give. Be good to yourselves and be good to each other. Muchísimas gracias y adelante. Do I take this or not?
Yes, if you'd like.
Will you ship it?
She won't lose that. At this time, we will take a short break to allow our servers to bring the main course. Please keep the aisles clear if possible to help our servers. So, brief break, we'll return to continue the program, and here comes your lunch. Thank you. Okay, friends, break's over.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you can please take your seats, the program is about to resume.
Thank you. Now you enjoy your lunch as we continue the program. We start on time, we end on time, respecting everybody's time. At every luncheon series event, the Latino Leaders Network features a community partner doing good for our community. Mana de San Diego is dedicated to a mission of empowering Latinas through education, leadership development, community service, and advocacy. Venus Molina, Chief of Staff to Council President Jennifer Campbell, serves as President of MANA Board of Directors, continuing 30 years of service. Please welcome Venus for community partner remarks. Thank you. Thank you. Of course you can.
I had to ask if I could hug him. I'm vain too, but I do need my glasses. Buenas tardes. Okay, buenas tardes. And just to kind of show how many MANA family members are out there. Bienvenidos a San Diego, to all of you that are not from San Diego. As the president of MANA de San Diego, I would like to thank Mickey, the Honorable Mickey, and the Latino Leaders Network for this opportunity. We share many similarities as we both value personal stories and relationships while we build community. And I'm going to get a little bit off topic just because I am so grateful that we are surrounded with such amazing people, especially people for me in my personal life. You know, I have our congressman here who was our council member when I was growing up in District 8, and we called him El Padrecito. And he was able to engage all the señoras from church. And you know, that's how we were able to get him to become our council member in District 8. And Lydia Martinez, who's our Hada Madrina, our dream maker that gives us all wings, especially our young women at MANA who are trying to get to college across the country, across to different cities. So thank you so much to Southwest and to MANA de San Diego. Southwest is MANA de San Diego's official airline. And I'm not done. Yes, they're amazing. And Dr. de la Torre, it is such an honor. I didn't go to San Diego State, I'm a torero, but you make me want to go back to school and make me want to go back just so that I can say I'm at San Diego State with you as president. So thank you so much. And of course, one of my hermanas, one of my sheroes, Nora Vargas, I can't say enough about her. She is not just a pillar of our community, she's our friend, and she is an institution and a one that you do not mess with at the county, because she is establishing herself as the one and only fierce supervisor, and also my friend. Thank you. Big hugs to you. As the Honorable Mickey mentioned, our mission at Mana de San Diego is to empower Latinas through education, leadership development, community services, and advocacy. Why Latinas and why women? I truly believe that when you educate a woman, you educate her family, her household, her community, and the society. And why Latinas? Did you know that in the next 5 years, 1 of 5 women in this country will be a Latina? Yes. And here in California, only 2% of Latinas are elected office, 4% are in management positions. So you are now investing in a young girl who grew up in a barrio like Sherman Heights, was considered at risk, a girl who was bused out at 8 years old to an all-white school to help diversify the school system, a girl who suffered cultural and identity shock when trying to learn English and fit in during her school years, until the age of 12, where 2 badass Latinas showed up at her school, recruited her and 11 of her friends, her at-risk friends, to be a part of the Hermanitas, a mentorship program with Mana de San Diego. The program, along with many mentors this organization has provided, not only gave her the opportunity, but helped her discover her talents as a leader. Today, I would like to introduce to you that young at-risk girl. She's not 12 anymore, but she's standing here in front of you as the president of the organization that changed her life. I would like to personally introduce to you Venus Molina, barrio girl from Sherman Heights, Chief of Staff for Council President Campbell, and President of Mana de San Diego. Yes. I am happy to say that I am not the only one of these young girls and women whose Mana de San Diego has touched. I welcome all of you to make a difference in a young girl's life, because you never know how far they will go. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Teddy. A gentleman. Yeah, no. Venus also pointed out he also works for her. Thank you anyway, Teddy. The Eagle Leadership Award. Ricardo Lara serves as California's insurance commissioner, a statewide elected position he won in 2020 after serving in both the California Assembly and Senate for 8 years. Raised by a factory worker and a seamstress, Ricardo is the first openly gay person to be elected to statewide office in California's history. As insurance commissioner, Ricardo has taken on tough fights and won for California consumers and the Latino community. He is a proud graduate of San Diego State University. And as I mentioned earlier, currently serves as the president of NALEO. Please welcome our friend, the Honorable Ricardo Lara, for the introduction of our keynote speaker and honoree. Oh, you do that. Thank you.
You know, Venus, Teddy also worked for me, by the way. It's great to be here with all of you, Lydia. I'm going to keep my glasses porque ya estoy viejo y no puedo leer. Don't get old. It really sucks, you guys. It's great to be here to honor such an amazing individual. But before I get to talking about nuestra presidenta de la Torre, I want to just acknowledge, of course, my bestie. Who would have thought in the halls at San Diego State that we were going to be here today in these roles? Thank God there wasn't any Facebook or Instagram or anything. But, you know, those are the moments that we really cherish. And so I'm proud of you, my friend. Nelly Gorvey, who is also on the board of NALEO, mi comadre, she was there with me day one. And hopefully I'm moving to Rhode Island as soon as I can to go walk for you, to go raise money for you, to make sure that you become the governor that you deserve to be, because you're amazing. Let's give Nelly Gorvey a round of applause. And I think I saw our mayor, Alejandra Sotelo Solis, who also sits on our board, an amazing campeona for our people. And of course, I would be remiss if I just didn't share some few words about Lidia. You know, people come into your life for different purposes. And Lidia, to me, growing up in East Los Angeles, it was hard to see women, and particularly Latinas, in positions of power. And then you meet somebody like Lydia Martinez, who teaches you to be unapologetic of who you are, regardless of who you love, what you look like, your color of your skin. She always tells you, like, hey, stand up a little taller and go out there. You could do this. And that was what Lidia has always been for me. And Congressman Vargas said it so amazingly eloquent, gives our children wings. You know, when I was in the state Senate, I had this program called the Young Senators Program. So many of those kids from the neighborhood had never been on a plane before. And all you had to do is give Lydia a call and explain to her what we were doing. And there she is without a second thought, putting 50 little brown kids from the east side, and the best experience of that after you talk to those kids were being on a plane for the first time in their lives, right? So Lydia, felicidades, comadre, te lo mereces todo. Eternal happiness. And of course, thank you for Teddy. Teddy was my Senate fellow back when in the Capitol. And I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. What a great staffer, amazing children you have. And of course, your great hubby, que siempre está callado, ¿verdad? Está calladito. ¿Qué le haces, Lydia? God. You know, I know the Latina secret. Don't lie, yeah. Los tienes bien calladitos. So, you know, I'm proud to stand before you as your California Insurance Commissioner, but more importantly, as a San Diego State Aztec, a proud product of the CSU system, a system that gave somebody like me an opportunity to pursue my dreams. Back in East Los Angeles, I would have never thought that, one, I would even go to college, or to even graduate and next be here in this position. But our institutions like San Diego State that give kids like me an opportunity, at the time kids, was amazing. But it was also really, really tough, because you never saw anybody that looked like you. You never saw anybody that shared in your last name or even spoke Spanish. And those things matter. You know, representation matters. And for a first-generation student that had no idea, my parents literally just dropped me off on campus, and they're like, okay, que te vaya bien, vamos a ir a Tijuana. And I'm like, well, okay. You know, I have family in Tijuana, so it was just easy for them to just drop me off. And I'm like, all righty then. So, hi, I'm in college. Where do I go? But it's such an honor to see how we celebrate these two amazing, fierce Latinas. That we take a moment, as Mickey said, to share our stories and to celebrate who we are, as Lydia taught me, unapologetically. And there's no one more unapologetic. If you would have just been at her investiture and they're playing Spanish music and she's speaking Spanish, I was like, this is why I fought so hard when I was a state senator and chair of the Latino caucus to get Latina presidents at the CSU. This is why our caucus came together and said, we have to come together and support women, women of color, to be heads of these universities where people like us belong. And so, you know, in the early 90s, I'm not going to tell you what year, but I rolled up as a freshman at San Diego State, and I could have never imagined a world where these two identities, Presidenta and Latina, would go hand in hand. Never would I have thought that those two words, you know, would have come together. Back then, when I was an SDSU machista, fighting for everybody's rights, making sure that I learned my history and that I paid my dues, it still felt like it was such a long thing to overcome, to see a president that looked like me, that spoke the language that I did, that had similar life experiences. And so that was only possible, and that is really only possible if you understand and know President de la Torre's story, that story is only happens in the United States of America. This is why our country is not perfect, but this is where dreams still happen. And her story is one of all of our stories that we shared. You know, it's really interesting. I always talk when they ask me about San Diego State, I always say, I can't believe I had to leave East LA, where I used to play ballpark at Salazar Park. I had to leave East LA to learn about my Chicano Mexican-American civil rights movement that occurred in my neighborhood in the halls of San Diego State. It's Storm Hall. And seeing my community before my eyes in class, I'm like, wait a minute, that's my neighborhood. You know, because growing up in East LA where everybody's Latino, you eventually just think you're white. And I was like, you know, I thought I was like Zach from Saved by the Bell. And I arrived to San Diego State, like, you know, all with my little sweater rolled up and everything. Because that's what I would watch on TV. And then people are like, what? You have an accent. Where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from LA. And I'm like, oh, LA. You have the LA accent. Got it. But now in hindsight, I don't know if I wanted to become Zach or if I actually had a crush on Zach. So whatever. But that's the beauty about institutions like San Diego State. So diverse, so dynamic, that give everybody an opportunity to pursue the American dream. And so what I talk about is the fact that representation does matter. You know, in San Diego State, it was also where I came out of the closet. And I came out fighting for immigrant rights, fighting for women's rights, fighting for ensuring that our working families had a place at the table. And so President de la Torre, as we all know, becomes the first woman, first Latina to head this prestigious university, the crown jewel of the CSU system, the most important CSU campus in the state. And I could say that, right? ¿Por qué no? And since taking the helm at SDSU, President de la Torre has reduced equity gaps for underrepresented students of color. She's improved students and improved employee diversity. She's improved graduation rates across all student categories. Representation matters. For over 3 decades, Dr. de la Torre has served institutions of higher learning, driven by her unwavering commitment to education, family, and hard work. These core values are rooted in her history, that she will share in a bit. Dr. de la Torre grew up in a diverse working class neighborhood with a single mom, and she's never lost sight of those humble beginnings, even now, as she leads 35,000 students, 3,000 faculty and staff, and nearly a $1 billion annual budget. Representation matters. She leads the university. She's focused on expanding the campus from SDSU Mission Valley, which I'm so excited about, growing the university's research enterprise, expanding SDSU and SDSU Imperial Valley degrees across and making sure they have all the access, and launching the university's new 5-year strategic plan. Representation matters. President de la Torre is leaving a lasting mark on, and I warmly congratulate her on receiving today's honor. I always think of families and think of your mom and your grandma and think that in the wildest dreams, they would have a daughter who would be leading a university. And seeing you, I wasn't there, but I was watching you online and seeing just el orgullo that you had. And at the end of the day, all us Latinos, we just want to make our moms happy, right? I mean, at the end of the day, come on. Even though my mom still thinks I sell insurance, and I'm like, no, I don't sell insurance. She's like, you left the Senate early to sell insurance? I'm like, no, Mom, I'll talk to you later. But let me just close the circle where I began. On that day, nearly 3 decades ago, when I rolled up on campus, and my parents dropped me off for Upward Bound, and my dad met one of my professors with flip-flops, shorts, and a t-shirt. And my dad, of course, a very traditional man, said, there is no way you are going to come here. What kind of a university is this? And I reminded him the day I graduated. I told him the kind of university that San Diego State is the one that changed my life. And not only for me, but for every Latino kid that has the honor to enter those gates, that now has a Latina president at the helm and can finally see themselves and finally understand that they also have a story and a responsibility as an Aztec. SDU has changed my life, and through Dr. de la Torre's leadership, I know for certain the university is changing the lives of so many others. It's wonderful to join every one of you here today and to congratulate our Madam Presidenta. Madam President de la Torre, congratulations. Let's give her a round of applause.
Mil gracias, Ricardo, Mickey, Lydia, to be in the room with you is fantastic. Everybody here today, I can't tell you how grateful I am. You know, I have to start with a funny story. You know, when I went through the convocation, my mom was about 95 at the time and she couldn't come. So she had, my niece was there helping her with the Facebook live feed, which was really a big deal for my mom. And my mom looked at it and she said, you know, just remember to bring, because they had also all these wonderful decorations. She needed all the decorations. And I said to her, Mom, okay, which ones do you want? Everything. And because my mom was the type of mom, and she would literally do this. Well, do you know who my daughter is? And she needed to do that. So she was, you know, that's what it's about. It's about making our moms proud. Right? When you think about it, it means so much. So I want to just start today and thank, of course, everybody here, but I'd also want to thank a moment. So my mom passed away about a year ago, and I need to thank her. And my sister passed away also about a year ago from, she had ovarian cancer. It was undetected, and it happened very quickly. And I always say, because my sister and my mom were like two peas in a pod, I said, you know, my sister passed away first, and I just knew in my heart and hearts, I wanted my mom to get to 100. You know, that was a big, big year. But I knew that the minute I told her, and I was really, really torn, but you know, you can't lie to your mom. You just cannot. And I told her, and I just knew at that moment, I could see it in her eyes, that she wouldn't last long. And I'm grateful that I know that they're looking at me right now, and I know they're rooting for me, and they're here with me. So I'm just so pleased to honor them and to start a little bit about my story. And you know, it was funny. I was thinking, so what am I going to say? And I just decided I'm going to tell my story because I think who I am is so much, when I look at my life and I talk to my students, it reflects so much of who they are. So when I look at my really early formative years and I look at the factors that have made me a president, they really come from my childhood. And it occurred with my mom as a single parent and my abuelita. And really what was important is they instilled, I think, the very important values that pushed me forward. So we didn't have a lot of funds financially, but I never felt I lacked anything because my abuelita was an absolute genius. In fact, long before people knew what recycling was, my grandmother was the expert with latas and with jars. In fact, I used to think, because she would use all of the different tin cans, she would take every seed, every seedling. Our backyard was full of latas, geraniums, plants, flowers. And I really thought that was the only way you could grow a plant, is you had to recycle your tin cans. So I really thought at the time, when I looked at my grandma's macetas, that she was a genius, because she did teach me everything that I could imagine. In fact, even with a dress, because back then also, everything had value. She said, Adelita, todo puedes usar. I said, okay, Grandma, what am I going to do? You see this old dress, don't throw it away. 2 delantales, or a washcloth, or better yet, you can make it into another dress. The other thing I also learned from her was arroz. Arroz is very important in Mexican culture. It's very important in Latin America. In fact, it's important all over the world. So we would always have arroz. You know, we'd always have frijoles, we'd always have tortillas, we'd have a lot of other things too. But whenever we had arroz left over, she'd say, okay, mañana, arroz enfermo. And she did it perfectly. Just amount of sweetness and a little bit of canela. And in the morning, it was absolutely fabulous. But probably my favorite thing about my grandmother is what she could do with harina, with flour. So she would make all of our tortillas and she would put them on the comal. And she also taught me, I learned how to make tortillas, and I also learned how to smother it with butter, with mantequilla. That is the only way to have tortillas. You have to have mantequilla. If she made her bolillos, which were the best, right out of the horno, yes, you had to put plenty of mantequilla. So I have to say it was her imagination, her talent, and her creativity that taught me that a lack of a young one, Francisco. And what happened was she needed to work early. So my mother grew up in the Central Valley. My grandparents were from Mexico. And so she worked with her sister, my Uncle Paco, and they worked together to support the family. But she said to me all the time that it was worth working to accomplish something. And she struggled to finish her education. She became a teacher, but it took her a long time. And it was always a sense of, I could have done a better job, right? But when I think about graduating from Modesto Community College in the 1940s as a young Mexican-American woman, and yes, transferring to Berkeley and living with my grandmother's comadre at the time, who lived in El Cerrito, it was a very different place. And she was able to graduate from Berkeley in the 40s, which is pretty remarkable. So her college degree, and this is what's key, opened the door for her future. She became an elementary school teacher and she taught for 40 years. And I always remember my mom's story because she went back to the Central Valley when she got her degree. She didn't have a credential, but she had an emergency credential. And she immediately went to teach in a school in the Valley. And what happened was she went to the classroom and they put her with mostly Mexican kids. And of course, she could speak Spanish. And at the time, the principal was this white older woman. And she looked at my mother because my mother was spending a lot of times with the kids. And she said to her, why are you wasting that time with those kids? And she said, well, what would have happened to me if a teacher didn't spend time with me? And she said, well, you're different. And she said, I'm not different. They're me. And she said it with such grace, but conviction. She wanted me to know at an early age that this type of experience would be part of my life, that those perceptions of me and accomplishments would be critical, but I needed to be strong and be ready to battle. So in this context, my mom was an amazingly courageous woman. She was an amazingly gentle and compassionate woman. And she supported my mother, and my grandmother, my sister, and me, so we could move forward without fear. And I say fear because she also suffered tremendously, not only by losing her father, but also because she was in a horribly abusive, physically and emotional relationship. And she almost died in childbirth. In fact, I was her last child, and she almost died. And in that pregnancy, she had to really make a decision to protect all of us. So she gave me to my grandmother to raise. And for the first 5-6 years, I did not know my mother was my mother. I thought she was a lady that lived upstairs. And I used to call my mother, my abuela, mi mamá. I'd go, mi mamá, ¿qué vamos a hacer? Mi mamá, ¿qué vamos a hacer? And so for many, many years, my sister and I, we were inseparable with my grandmother because my mother could not psychologically handle taking care of us. So early on, we had this amazing relationship with my grandmother. My grandmother was never a citizen. She was a Mexican immigrant. She wanted to be a citizen, but she had to raise her grandkids. She had to work. She worked in San Francisco making flowers. She worked making blinds. She basically worked wherever she could get a little bit of money to help. She also only spoke Spanish, so my first language was Spanish, and so it was our home language. But when I talk about that, I see it in a very different way. We had this incredibly open house. We had our primos, we had our tios, we had family from Mexico, we had neighbors coming in. And so what happened is our language, Spanish, brought us all together. It was a language of love. It was a language of connection. And so nuestra casa was a casa of love. And I did have an important male figure in my life, and that was my Uncle Paco. So my Uncle Paco fought in World War II, but he would come every weekend, and he was also my padrino, and he always would spoil me. But what I really remember and I loved is I would sit in the kitchen table, and you know, in Mexican families, kitchen tables are very, very important. And he would get, I'd have my leche, always caliente, because you have to have warm milk, especially when you have bolillos. And he would put a little bit of café y mucho azúcar. So I started drinking coffee, and to this day I drink a lot of coffee because of my uncle, my tío Paco. And it was interesting because my grandmother would look aside because she didn't quite approve, but she would say to me, Adelita es un buen hombre. And one of the things when you say es un buen hombre, it has a real important meaning in our culture. Un buen hombre takes care of their family. And she would always tell me, ese es un buen hombre, cuidado con ese. And so I would begin to understand, as you know, con los indirectas, because, you know, things aren't necessarily direct. You get these indirect things, right? You learn to translate. So I always had this wonderful sense of family. But more importantly, I also had this extended family. So, of course, my grandmother's sisters would come, Mama Tita, and Mama Tita was actually my first teacher. Mama Tita would listen to me speak Spanish, and then she'd say, Adelita, ¿qué dijiste? And I said, you know, I always was very respectful. And then she said, you didn't use the subjunctive right. And I would go, oh my gosh, you know, but she was my first teacher. Then I had my Aunt Tana who would come, who is my mom's sister, and she would come in and she would say to me, Adelita, con boca cerrada, because you can't eat with your mouth open, right? But she said, con boca cerrada no entran moscas. So I constantly had people educating me so that I had this village, and it was a village, it was my world. It became one of the factors that I think defined how I wanted to be part of a world where it wasn't separated by a small group, but in bringing everybody together. And so it was the love, the generosity, the humor that allowed me to believe in myself in ways. The last thing that I was raised devoutly Catholic. So my abuelita was devout. The Virgen de Guadalupe, the Virgen de Fatima, San Judas, right? So much that my grandmother insisted that my sister and I, after every rosary, and sometimes we would do it, it would go a week, no rosary, then it'd be every single day, right? So but there was one prayer that I remember every time in the rosary that we had to pray. And some of you probably know this, some of you may not. Dulce Madre, no me alejes. Tu vista no, de mí no partes. Ven conmigo todas partes y solo nunca me dejes, right? And I remember that because it was a prayer that I still, every day in my heart, I have it. But I have it in my heart for another reason. Interestingly enough, so when I mentioned my sister passed away, and it was really sudden. So I was fortunate that the hospital allowed me to stay with her and be with her. And at that moment, I started praying this prayer. She was in pain. She was sleeping, and I didn't think she heard me. But I'll tell you something a little bit funny, even though this was a tragic event. So I didn't say the prayer right. My sister was a Spanish teacher for over 30 years. So she said, I said, no me alejas. And she's, no, subjunctive. And I thought to myself, oh my God, Judy, even in death, you're going to do this to me. And I had to say, that's my family. They're always there watching out for me, right? And so when I look about how I am today, I must look back at when I was a 5-year-old girl growing up in the Bay Area, con mi abuelita, con mi mamá, with my sister, con mis tíos, mis primos, everybody, right? And it was through a collective effort, I have to say, that I got the best of our culture. And they raised a fatherless little girl so that she could become the woman you see here today before you. And so I just want to mention that because I think that history is a history that many in our community share. And I think it's a pathway that gives us much hope. So now, as university president, I want to give you some advice of how I think certain lessons learned helped me get there. And I have to make one comment because when I became president of San Diego State University, I remember driving in and I just got off the freeway there and you see the sign and you see the magnitude of the institution. I remember telling my husband, Steve, I said, I don't believe this. I'm president of this institution. And I just thought to myself, well, I'm just going to have to do it well, right? You're going to, con ganas. And I just said, but even after 3 years, I still am in awe of being a university president. I am humbled and I am grateful. And I have to say, when I look around the room and I see all the Aztecs here, and there are a lot, and I can't go into a single room in San Diego and not find an Aztec, I feel that I'm privileged to lead this great institution. But again, going back to what are the things or lessons learned for a pathway for a presidency, I think there's important ones. And I want to start with a couple of, I guess, concepts or areas that I think are important. First and foremost, and I think, Ricardo, you exemplify this, embrace who you are and your passions. I live in a period of California history when discrimination against Mexican Americans and language discrimination was very, very real. And I saw it, I felt it, and I knew it. Nonetheless, I would have to say my abuelita instilled in me a sense of pride about my Mexicanidad, and that I needed to recognize that would be a resilient feature, my culture and my language. So I didn't forget the sting when I felt it, but I never let it diminish my pride. As regards to my personal passion early on, it was education. I loved to learn. And interestingly enough, in high school, I loved mathematics. And it wasn't because my mother or my grandmother, because neither of them, that wasn't their strength, or either my tios or anyone else. But I remember, particularly my sophomore year, I really fell in love with geometry. And I somewhat attribute that to the fact that my grandmother taught me to sew, to embroider, to do everything with my hands, with the idea that it doesn't matter if you have a piece of thread, if you have imagination, you can create anything. And that's what mathematics did. You know, it was a formula, but you could create magic. So after high school, I was fortunate to go to UC Berkeley. And like many, I worked throughout college. And I began to take higher level courses. But the funny thing here again, and this goes to the second important message, is that you have to be able to take risks, right? The risk I took, so Ricardo, similar to you, I started school, but I didn't have any guidance. I just kind of started. I decided I want to take calculus, but I had no preparation. I mean, I really did not have any preparation. But I said, I want to take it. It sounds interesting. I think I might be able to do this, right? I struggled. It probably was the biggest mistake because I wasn't prepared, but I remember I got a B minus. And that B minus was one of my favorite grades. I was like, oh my God, I can do this. I'm a woman, I can do this, right? And it's interesting because you've heard the story about, the students get A's and then the students get B's and C's. Who's the leader, right? It's oftentimes those students that take the risk and aren't getting the A's that end up being in leadership roles because they take the risk. And then listen to the consejos and advice. And some of that advice is not going to be necessarily from a friend or a colleague or a family member. And that advice really is true for me because of why I pursued advanced education. I never thought I'd get a master's degree or a doctoral degree. That was not on my radar. I was walking on campus, a professor took me aside and I just said, well, what are you doing here? Because I had taken his classes. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to be graduating. I'm thinking what I'm going to do. And he said, well, Adela, you're not bad in economics. Have you thought about getting a master's in agricultural economics? And I said, no. But it occurred to me just by that one comment that I should apply. And I applied to 3 graduate schools, Berkeley, I applied to Davis, and I applied to Oregon State. And I got into all 3, and the rest is history. I fell in love with economics, and I moved on. But that is an example. Advice comes in strange forms, and if you have the opportunity to take them. The next one, I would say, is embrace the challenges set before you with hard work, but con ganas. You've got to do things con ganas, otherwise it doesn't work. So I struggle, believe me, with my doctoral training. In fact, I remember I would call my grandmother, okay, you need to, tienes que poner la vela para San Judas. I have an exam. I would pray to the Virgencita because I had to pray to the Virgencita before I did the exam. And so there was this whole ritual. But at the end of the day, I knew I had worked my tail off, right? And I walked in with a sense of, I'm going to just do it. I'm going to put everything on the line. And I know there are people who thought her math skills aren't good enough. She's not smart enough. She's not going to make it. And I really knocked it out of the park. I ended up doing very well. But I didn't have the confidence, but I had the ganas. The other thing is important is career planning. And a lot of people ask me, okay, what are the career plans to become a president? And I always tell them, most great outcomes oftentimes don't happen with a career plan. It's from unplanned events. And I always tell them, if you look at my resume very closely, you will see me zigzagging. I went from California to Colorado to Arizona to California. And the thing that really motivated me was my impact, my passion, and particularly my impact on students. So job security and salary was never a motivation for me. It was really that. And each time I looked for that challenge, it also came in an unexpected form. So it wasn't like, I was applying for a job. I usually had somebody knocking on my door. And then love what you do. Know your purpose. When I look at myself today, and I can honestly say that I've been blessed to be in higher education for 30 years. And unlike many presidents, most of my years have been in the classroom and as a researcher. And I just loved every moment of it. But what I have to say was one of my passions particularly, and I just knew it every time I was in the classroom, was working with students who were like me, who were traditionally underserved, and who really needed my voice. And sometimes, my loud voice in order for them to move forward. But when I saw them successful, it was as if I had succeeded. It was me, and I felt an incredible psychic reward. So once I was a tenured professor, this is another piece of advice. I had people who saw raw talent. All of us have raw talent, but oftentimes it has to be seen by others. And they helped open doors for me and advise me. So I became a department chair. I became a head of a research center. I became a special assistant to the dean. I became a vice chancellor, and then I became a president. The other piece is create a community. So when you're the one and only, and so Nora, you're the one and only, you are, you're a trailblazer, and yet you're still alone, right? Ricardo, you're a trailblazer, but you're still alone. So you need to find gente, folks. You can need to create that group, and I did that when I was in graduate school. So all the Latinas at Berkeley decided, we were the only ones in these doctoral programs. So we basically created a group of women called Mujeres en Marcha. And it was, for me, very important to have Latinas. And I realized because I was in a world of Latinas, I grew up with Latinas, my tias, my abuela, my mother, they were women who were always surrounding me. So I had to recreate that. And we did recreate it. And that was my cocoon. That was my support group. Those were my cheerleaders. They were my sorority sisters. And they were the ones that made a difference in many ways in helping me move on. And finally, and this is really core to who I am, is familia first and familia last. Throughout my career and throughout my life, central to who I am is my familia. And there has to be a balance between your professional career, your community activism, because without your familia close to your heart, then you really have no purpose, right? So remember, it can be broadly defined, but you need that emotional and spiritual support. And you need that because you need somewhere where you can have your confianzas, your love, your pain, your anger, whatever feeling or aspirations you have. So in my case, I've been blessed. I have the love of my life, my husband, Steve. I have my two wonderful daughters. Adelita and Gabriela, my nietos. I have Javier, Cecilia Luz, and a new granddaughter on the way. So they nurture and support me every day. And they also tell me when I should stop talking. When I started to talk today, and I'm almost done, I started with my journey to the presidency with my childhood memories of mi familia. And I want to end this talk with honoring my family today. So it's in the deep roots of my familia, which are embedded in our Latino culture, that will always, always propel us to succeed as individuals and as a community. So like this pearl necklace, this is my mom's. And I wear it today because each pearl is a pearl of wisdom. But if you know pearl necklaces, they're knotted by hand, right? At least the old-fashioned ones are. And I would say that each of these knots are knots of love. And it's really the type of love that we experience that propels us forward. So I want to end with this little story about my grandmother, because I used to like to have pláticas with my abuela, and she always wanted to give me advice. But there was one that I wanted to, when we had a plática, and I always used to do this at the end of a plática with her. I'd always say, Abuelita, ¿me quieres? Well, I knew the answer, right? Of course she loved me. I was her granddaughter. But I just love the way she would respond to me. And it always was the same response. And she'd always say, ay, Adelita, ¿cómo te quiero? And she'd always emphasize how I love you, how I love you. You see, to be a leader, you must love and know love. But it is how you love that will make the difference. Mil gracias.
Thank you. I'm going to grab that.
Yes.
Dr. Adela de la Torre, on behalf of the Latino Leaders Network, it is my honor to present you with our Eagle Leadership Award for your contribution to our community, your outstanding commitment to your community. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so
We'll
much.
take this over.
Sure.
Who's gonna make sure that we? Thank you, gentlemen. Just 1 minute more of your time, please. As all of you know in the room, good events don't happen accidentally. They require good planning and even better execution. I want to thank our event team that is here with us today, Maricela and Maritza Huerta of the Twins PR, Bill Bowen of Suburban Video in Washington, D.C., who's behind the camera, Brianna Else, Salma Rios, Enrique Sanchez, and our volunteers for their assistance. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, of course, and to our honorees for their leadership, and to all of you for showing up. This ends the 64th Latino Leaders Luncheon Series event. Thank you.